Welcome to Inside the Indians, your source for insider information on the Tribe. Stay with us as we bring you the latest about the players, managers, and people behind the scenes at Victory Field. Now here's your host, the longtime broadcast voice of the Indians, Howard Kellman.
Hi everybody, welcome to Inside the Indians. On today's show, we'll speak with manager Brian Esposito, hitting coach Ryan Long, and pitcher Geoff Hartlieb. We'll be back with Espo on the home of the Indians, WHMB TV 40. Esposito, the skipper of the Indianapolis Indians, our first guest on Inside the Indians. And Espo, I know you want to win, obviously, it's a part of development, but working with these guys on a daily basis, and we've had a lot of good individual seasons, still means a great deal.
Yeah, winning is part of your development. I think we're at that point in time in the season where, coming out of the break, we talked a little bit about what it means to help your team win a ball game. There are so many different parts of this game that you have to be really good at, whether it's your defense, your at-bats in the batter's box, what it looks like when you run the bases, and the same thing for pitchers. What does that look like on your end? How are you helping your team win a ball game? A lot of that will then funnel into your individual accolades, but 9 players in a lineup that are trying to hunt out some wins, if you're doing everything you possibly can on every given moment of that game, usually as an individual, you will have the success that you want. And if you don't, the game will tell you what you need to do better so we can come back and work on it the next day.
I think for the most part, we talk about defense. The Indians have played better defense than their opponents. And we'll go back to the game Sunday in Columbus. Jason Martin makes a terrific play, robs a home run, takes a home run away from a Columbus player, and J.B. Shuck makes an excellent throw from right field, cuts a man down at the plate. Those two things won the game.
Yeah, those are winning moments in the game. That's helping your team for the cause right there of doing some small things that don't, sometimes they go under the radar. This game has moved a lot towards your offensive production and what you do at the plate. But the other deciding factor is how many runs you keep from stepping on the plate. So when you have a group of guys that are taking pride in keeping people's feet off the plate, the team game becomes really fun, and you start to see some of these players start to shine. If they're not having the at-bats that they want, the mentality of if I'm not getting mine, you're not going to get yours, that should be rampant in a winning clubhouse.
That's what you like, but there are guys who out there and think about their hitting and dream and don't react because they're not focused.
Yeah, of course. It's a hard game, because a lot of people feel as though they're being evaluated on what they do as an offensive player, and the defense goes, underlooked, I guess you could say. At times it does. And then, certain organizations value different things. If you're an American League player, they like to see the bat work. If you're at a skill position, they want to see a combination of the two. In the National League, you better be really good at both to keep runs off the plate and drive them in. So everyone has a role to play. Pride in your game to help your team win encompasses all of that.
We mentioned Jason Martin a moment ago. Tell us your thoughts on him as a player.
Yeah, some opportunities at the big leagues this year when he came back down. He's made some adjustments to his setup in his initial swing and some of his plan of what he wants to do in the batter's box, and so he's working through that adjustment period. And when you work through an adjustment like that, you're not always going to have the success in terms of big numbers or home runs or a ton of hits, but he has taken this opportunity to really get better at what he needs to get done, and he's starting to see the successes that this adjustment's making for him. So sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's quick. For him, he's right where he needs to be right now, and he's going to continue to get better every day.
Pablo Reyes has really put himself on the radar the last couple of years. He's gotten big league time, done well here. Tell us about Pablo.
Yeah, Pablo always seems to have a really good second half. He comes out of All-Star break on a mission. So he's had a really good start to the second half right now. It's just constant reminders with him, going back to the conversation we started this with of, he needs to be the best player on the field, and a lot of times that's not always going to be going 4 for 4 in the batter's box. It's the other tangibles that he's really good at, which is being a lockdown defender in the outfield. He's got a plus arm where he can throw the ball around and keep and limit base runners to what they've earned and nothing more. but he's also an elite base runner when he wants to be. So we just got to make sure that he stays, in that circle of, I'm going to be the best player that I can be on the field tonight and help my team win the game any way I can.
Tell us something about hitting here, and that he did well in the big leagues last year when he got called up at the end. This year he struggled. He came here and he went 4 for 42 to start, and then all of a sudden he got a few hits and he didn't stop hitting.
Well, you look at the role that he played last year in the big leagues. He was an everyday player when he went up there. He was getting a lot of at-bats, consecutive at-bats, and when you're doing that, it's easy to stay in a rhythm, your timing, all that stuff stays connected. You're seeing the ball well. This year was a little bit different for him. When he broke camp and he was on that club, a lot of his at-bats came on pinch hit opportunities, or some games started spread out a little bit. So your rhythm and timing might not be as sharp as it should be. Then there's the element of being a younger player trying to show that he belongs, and there might be some pressing involved, and we're trying to hunt out getting hits and doing different things. Then when you get sent down, now you're trying to show people that you're able to do those things, and then you start to press even harder down here. So a lot of times people try to impress as opposed to perform, and everything that's tied with Pablo is about just trying to do everything he can to be the best player on the field.
That's well said, and it explains how difficult this game is to play.
It's a really hard game. It gets easier and easier as you get into the dugout and then into the seats, and then all the way up where you sit up in the booth. It gets a lot easier way up there. But no, this game is challenging. It's hard. There's a lot of things that go into play. A lot of your mental aspects is what really needs to be harnessed when you're in a role like that, where you go to the big leagues and you have success in your first time through. The second time around, you hit some failure. Now it's the adjustment that I make as a player. How am I going to combat this failure that I have? Sometimes people try to do more, and it's actually about doing less, and you're going to get more out of it.
J.B. Shuck, we've talked about young players these last two shows. J.B. Shuck is a veteran player. Tell us about his role on this team.
Yeah, he broke camp with the team, and he played a pretty good role up there and doing what he needed to do. He's your solid veteran clubhouse guy that you want on a club. He's in a unique role where we're getting him innings on the mound to almost solidify himself as a two-way player in the big leagues for next year with some of the new rules that they have in place. So we're getting opportunities for him on the mound. We're getting opportunities for him to continue being the outfielder that he is. And he's a professional hitter. He puts up a lot of pro at-bats, and the effort is outstanding when he runs the bases. It's a good way to teach some of these younger guys that are here about the value of what it looks like to be an all-out player on every play and every opportunity that you have to make it work.
I think he's a good example of how a relief pitcher should not be judged by his earned run average. He had 5 scoreless outings, 5 fine outings, 1 really rough one, and the ERA is not going to indicate that he had 5 successes.
Yeah, I look at that too. ERA, if you look at any, season ERA, if you pull a few starts or a few appearances out of there, those numbers kind of shrink down. But, an ERA is just going to tell you what you did in the past, Same thing with batting average. It tells you what you did in the past. So as long as these guys show up every day, which he does, and he understands that, I'm going to get the ball, I'm going to get some more opportunities. I'm just going to be the best pitcher or player I can be on any given night to help my team win games. And when we start really focusing on that, the team aspect of it, what you did in the past doesn't really make a difference anymore. I know that that's hard to say because a lot of players, that's how they get their salaries when it comes down to it in the big leagues and arbitration and different things like that. But I truly believe when you got a unit and a clubhouse full of guys that are pulling to try to win games every night, those individual successes usually are where they need to be.
Well said. Thanks, Espo.
You got it.
That's Brian Esposito, the skipper of the Indians, on the home of the Indians, WHMB TV 4. Indians hitting coach, our guest on Inside the Indians. And Ryan, one of the great things is seeing people and players do well here and then go to the big leagues and have success. And today in the clubhouse, Jose Osuna is paying us a visit. He's a great story.
Yeah. Happy for O. Obviously, been doing a good job with his time he's been up there. It looks like he's kind of settled into his role. He's had a lot of chances to practice it, being up and down so much as he has the last couple of years. And it's awesome just to see him, the way he's contributing, owning his role and just being the guy he needs to be when he gets the opportunity.
Yes, and he's played some games, but he's also pinch hit. and he's pinch hit successfully, and that's a very difficult job.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what stands out the most to me is just the success he's had pinch hitting. I know he's hit some homers and had some other good at bats. So, man, what a valuable hitter that can be for them.
And usually, especially in the National League with pinch hitting, and usually guys who are good pinch hitters are veteran players, but he's a younger player handling the role beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, younger player and a big thing. You know, he's had a lot of bats professionally, so I mean, there's a lot of experience there. Not so much in the major leagues, like you said, but enough. So fully capable, and yeah, he's doing a nice job.
Brian Hayes was injured, had a broken finger, has come back and is swinging the bat extremely well since he's come back. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Key's, like you said, he had the broken finger, which is unfortunate. I felt like right as that happened, he was starting to kind of do some things that, you know, see some things play out on the field that he's been working on all year. So that was unfortunate, little setback. But then he stepped back in and has done a nice job of kind of re-picking up where he was, starting to drive some balls to left field, and just really driving the ball to all fields, which he can do when he's good. But seeing it, you know, come to fruition at 7:05 during the games is what it's all about. So it's been nice to see for him.
And he's a young player. We have to always remember that with young players. And I think it looked as if at times he would pull off the ball with his front side, and that's a common fault among hitters.
Yeah, I mean, he would come off some balls like a lot of guys do. I think, you know, one of the things for young hitters is you know, how to get consistent at getting that ball to the pull side and getting it in the air. So that's kind of one of the things we've been working on and what that kind of looks like. So you're going to go through some ups and downs, getting to that final piece, but you know, the process of it. But yeah, like I said, he's starting to do it in game now, and it's starting to pay off for him.
I think what's really special when a right-hand hitter going to right center, left-hand hitter to left center, when they hit the ball with authority the opposite way, you have to have good mechanics to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing it's been awesome about him coming up is he's always been able to do that. He's been a guy who can drive some balls to right field. So now it's just you know, being aware of, you know, if he's doing that on pitches that maybe he could drive to left center or drive out of the ballpark, which, you know, sometimes is a good thing. So that's all it is being able to continue to do what he does, drive the ball the other way, and being able to drive some balls to the pull side as well.
Will Craig is in his first year here. He's had a good season. Tell us about Will.
Yeah, Will, like another young player, like you said, in terms of experience and professional experience. Had some ups and downs and got off to a great start. They made some adjustments, which they will do in this league, pitching a little differently, and now he's having to adjust back. But yeah, Will's got a lot of power, a little natural loft. Yeah, he just continues to try to, you know, take professional at bats, what that looks like for him, and just work towards, obviously, his one thing is being able to drive the ball out of the park. So being able to get pitches to do that with is big, and being able to lay off pitches that, you know, they're trying to get him out with is the other part. So yeah, he's doing better.
You mentioned being able to do that with pitches, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the number one rule of hitting is get a good pitch to hit.
Yeah, I mean, and more importantly, you know, is you know, what fits what you're trying to do. So, you know, for him, which is, you know, drive the ball. So balls that, you know, necessarily are maybe in too close to him, maybe those aren't pitches he can drive, you know. So that type of stuff is what we continue to work through, what we continue to train. And then so he's got to continue to own that a little more in the game. And he's, you know, he's had some ups and downs with that part of it, but he's getting better.
You mentioned what he's trying to do, and it's so important for a hitter to go up there with a plan.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's it from a night, you know, talk about, you know, you want to know what this, you're going to have a plan first off, and then you want to know what he's trying to do to get me off my plan. So that's basically it. So those two things. Now, being able to execute that, that's a whole different story, right? There's a lot of things out of my control as I'm up there as a hitter. So, but yeah, going into the game, you got to have a plan. You got to have something you stick to. And that don't mean it can't be adjusted. You know, I'm watching the game, and this guy might be doing this tonight that he couldn't do before for whatever reason. So my plan may have to be adjusted a little bit, but yeah, have a plan, know what he's trying to do to get me off that plan, and basically trying to stick to that. That's the game within the game, so to speak.
Yes, and there's so much you mentioned adjustments and adjustments made. And I've had some people say, well, you need to look at a guy for 2 or 3 years before you can tell what kind of player you have because of all the adjustments.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the game's going to, you know, obviously, like you said, the game's going to adjust, and you got to adjust back, you know, especially, you know, you'll see it at the major league level a lot with guys in their second year, stuff like that. So, yeah, it's a big part, being able to adjust and you know, not get off track too much, but understanding what they're trying to do to get you off track. So that's a big thing.
Cole Tucker is another guy who's had a good year. Tell us about him.
Yeah, Cole, another young guy experience-wise, in my mind, at the upper levels. So is going to go through some ups and downs and got some significant major league time this year, which was awesome for him and us. so that he can kind of see what's in his future in terms of big picture, what it looks like up there. So switch hitter, has made some adjustments as well to control his body. He's got the big, long, lanky body, so he's worked hard to kind of own that this year and get himself in a good place there. Competes. I mean, he competes. He comes to play every day. He has fun doing it. So that's the big upside for him is how he plays the game and how he goes about his business every day. But just continue to learn what the game's teaching him as he goes along, and handle that the right way. I mean, he'll be good.
You mentioned Cole's a switch hitter. The greatest switch hitter of all time was Mickey Mantle, who was a high ball hitter right-handed and a low ball hitter left-handed. Are most switch hitters different from each sides of the plate?
I guess they can be. I don't know exactly. I mean, I think in terms of where they like the ball, maybe at times. I think everybody's just everybody's individual. I think it just depends on the hitter.
Cole's different than almost all switch hitters because he's a natural left-hand hitter.
Yeah, I mean, usually you learn to do the other a little bit, and he's probably been hitting left hand a little longer. So, but yeah, he's learned along the way, and he's doing a nice job with the adjustments.
Ryan, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Howard.
That's Ryan Long on the home of the Indians, WHMB TV 40. Pitcher Geoff Hartlieb, our next guest on Inside the Indians. Geoff, you've had a really good year. You got time in the big leagues. First, tell us about that experience.
Unbelievable. It was everything you think it's going to be and more. A huge learning experience, and just really grateful for the opportunity I was given, and now very hungry to get back up there and contribute,
And you talk about the opportunity and the learning experience. Anything in particular Ray Surridge, the pitching coach up there, said to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's conviction of pitches more than anything. Really believing in what you're going to throw, and if you need to shake to get to what you really want and you believe in, go ahead and do that. And just the way you attack hitter, every hitter is different, and especially lefties, getting on the hands and then letting the sinker work away. So it's been a lot of learning and developing, but I'm very confident where I'm at and where I'm going to. So I'm excited.
You mentioned conviction, and pitchers can have challenges just like hitters. It's hard to pitch, it's hard to hit. When you're not going well, it's like hope. And when you are going well, it's conviction, and hope is not a strategy.
Absolutely not. You're right. You're exactly right. When you're going up there and you're letting that pitch out of your hand and you're hoping it's going to get the guy out, it's a heck of a lot different result usually than when you know you're going to get the guy out. And that's the way I'm pitching right now. It feels great. And when you're in a spot like this, to be doing well and rolling a little bit, everything feels pretty easy. This is when this is not how you judge people right here where I'm going through right now. It's what I went through when I was up there, when things aren't going great, when you're facing adversity every time out, and the lucky bounces aren't going your way. That's when you find out who you are as a pitcher, who you are as a man, and those tests are fun.
Sometimes you can be helped with mechanics, but other times when a pitcher's not pitching with conviction and there's doubt in his mind, that will adversely affect mechanics.
No doubt. It's that when it creeps in, it starts to creep in, it can really change everything you're doing. And no matter how much work you put in before, during the mental process you have, it probably won't make up for that fact. So yeah, it's one of the biggest things there is in this game.
Tell us the story how you came out of school and got involved in professional baseball.
Yeah, so in high school, growing up, basketball was my first love. It was my thing. I never thought I was going to play baseball once I threw my last pitch of my senior year. So I thought I was done with it, and then I ended up not loving college basketball as much as I thought I would. And I was messing around on the quad one day, playing catch with a buddy, like long tossing, just throwing the baseball, and the catcher for the team, Quincy University, saw me. And he told me I should come out and throw for their coach. I'd already quit the basketball team at that point, so I was just kind of hanging out. I went out there and threw. They offered me a scholarship to stay. I didn't want to stay at the school, but I was like, I guess I'd get this paid for somewhere else. I just wanted a scholarship anywhere. Emailed a few coaches. Linden would email me back pretty quickly, and I went down later that week, threw for them. They offered me a scholarship on the spot. Here I am.
Well, how about signing, coming out of school and being drafted?
Okay, so I went in 3 years at Lindenwood. My second year, I was drafted by the Mets in the 37th round. I said no, went back to school, graduated. Then I got drafted by the Pirates, 29th round, and it was, here's a plane ticket, a couple bucks, get out here and sink or swim. And I really took that to heart, and I take a lot of pride in the work I put in to get here, and the odds were not in my favor, let's just put it that way. But defy the odds, it's a fun thing to do.
Well, that's wonderful, and that's a good point. When you're a 29th round pick, you have to work and show them you can really do something, as opposed to a first, second, or third round pick where they've invested in you.
Absolutely, you're not given every chance in the world to fail and pick yourself up multiple times, and so that was put in my head in the first offseason I had, and the place I work out at is called P3 Performance, and there are guys who have been around the professional game quite a bit, and they kind of just were like, hey, this is what you need to do, this is where you need to be when you go into spring training to set yourself apart from everyone else. And so I was more ready, more prepared than everyone else when I came into spring that year. And if I hadn't been throwing as hard as I was and shown a new way of pitching that I didn't that first year in Bristol, I don't think I'd have made the low A team out of camp, and maybe none of this would have happened. So I'm forever grateful to those guys for getting me ready, and then just sticking to that plan and showing up more ready than everybody else every year since. So that's what I take pride in.
Well, Geoff, I thank you so much, and I congratulate you on all you've achieved.
Appreciate it, Howard. Thank you.
That's Geoff Hartlieb, and this is the home of the Indians, WHMB TV 40. Thanks to our guests, Brian Esposito, Brian Long, and Geoff Hartlieb. See you next week on Inside the Indians.